There are moments when a look lingers long enough to alter the air between two people. You feel it before you understand it. It is not the quick glance of courtesy, nor the polite acknowledgement of passing eyes. It is slower, denser. It has weight. His gaze does not simply rest on you, it begins to live there. Something in that stillness tells you that this is no longer a casual exchange of sight. It is something older, something deeper, as if the gaze itself has been waiting for you long before the man ever knew your name. This is not about seduction games or a performance of charm. It is not the shallow spark of flirtation. This is about an invisible exchange happening beneath words and gestures, an exchange woven into the fabric of his unconscious. Carl Jung once said that the eyes are windows to the unconscious. When a man's stare lingers beyond comfort, he is often not seeing you as you are in this moment, but rather seeing a living symbol, something his psyche has been searching for without knowing it. That symbol is what Jung called the anima, the inner feminine image that lives inside every man, formed from layers of memory, longing, and the unmet tenderness of his own inner life. The gaze that holds you in place may feel like desire, but it is often more complex than that. This is the point where fascination becomes imprint. The moment his eyes stay with you long enough, something begins to record. Inside his mind, connections form, weaving your presence into his neural pathways. From the perspective of neuroscience, every emotional response leaves a chemical trace. Joe Dispenza describes it as a neurochemical signature. When a man looks at you this way, he isn't consciously thinking. He is engraving you into the silent archive of his inner world. His nervous system starts to remember you before he has even spoken your name aloud. And yet for many women, this moment is easily misread. The gaze can feel like recognition, like connection, like intimacy. You may believe it means he sees the whole of you. But very often what he sees is not you. It is his own longing reflected back at him. Sometimes it is awe. Sometimes it is confusion. Sometimes it is a projection so powerful that he believes it must be love. This is where the seed of obsession is planted, not in the truth of who you are, but in the tension between what he feels and what he cannot understand. In these first moments, you may notice something unspoken beginning to weave between you. His eyes are no longer simply eyes, they are a question he cannot put into words, a question about himself, a question he does not even know he is asking. Jung warned us, the unconscious will find its way into our lives if we do not face it, and we will call it fate. That stare, that lingering silence between blinks, is not fate. It is an unfolding psychological event. It is the beginning of a story written in symbols and sensations, a story that has little to do with the present moment and everything to do with the architecture of his inner world. This video is about seeing through that story, about recognizing the difference between being truly seen and being used as a mirror for someone else's unspoken need. Because when a man's gaze carries this kind of weight, it can feel magnetic, even irresistible. But beneath that pull lies an ancient longing, an unfinished chapter, a shadow yearning for light. And if you understand that, you will begin to see that obsession is never just about you. It is about what has been awakened inside him. And so we begin here, with the truth that what you feel in that gaze is not merely attention but archetype, not simply attraction, but the echo of something older than both of you. It is the meeting place between his conscious self and the myth he carries within. From this place we can start to understand why his focus feels so intense, why it resists logic, and why it can shift the energy between you before a single word is spoken. It begins quietly, almost invisibly. A shift so small that you might mistake it for nothing at all. Yet in that moment when his gaze lingers, something inside his body has already begun to change. The nervous system is not neutral. It is constantly scanning for signals of meaning, safety, and reward. When his eyes meet yours and stay there long enough, the body interprets this as significance. Chemistry begins to stir. Hormones whisper messages to the brain. Dopamine rises. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, hums beneath the surface. Without words, the process of attachment has already started. Science tells us that the brain works through a process known as neurotagging. It takes the image before it, pairs it with the emotional state it feels in that moment, and binds them together. The more intense the feeling, the deeper the tag is set. From that point forward, you are no longer just a person he has met. You have become a symbol coded into his neural map of meaning. This is why certain glances feel heavier, more magnetic. The weight you sense is not just in his eyes, it is in the biochemical imprint being formed beneath his awareness. Carl Jung's model helps us understand this deeper layer. To him, you are not simply a woman standing before a man. You are, in his unconscious, the embodiment of his anima. The anima is the inner feminine ideal that lives in the male psyche. It is not shaped by conscious choice. It is formed through his earliest experiences with femininity, his relationship with his mother, the women who first awakened his emotions, the unmet needs of his heart. This inner image carries both longing and pain, beauty and shadow. When you appear to him in a way that matches even faintly the contours of that image, something within him says, "I know her," even if he does not. This is why the bond feels silent yet powerful. It is not built on mutual knowing. It is not built on shared history. It is built on the collision between biology and archetype, between the body's chemical surge and the soul's ancient imprint. He may not realize it, but the moment he locks eyes with you, his nervous system is no longer just processing a face. It is responding to a deep symbolic call. Many women misinterpret this moment. They feel the intensity and call it love at first sight. But love, real love, is slow, grounded, and conscious. What often begins in these moments is not love. It is longing disguised as recognition. It is the mind's hunger for completion colliding with the body's rush of pleasure chemistry. Obsession grows easily here, because the man is not simply drawn to who you are. He is drawn to what you awaken in him, what you represent in the unseen corridors of his psyche. And so, before a word is spoken, before any choice is made, the silent bond has already formed. Not because of destiny, not because of a soulmate's calling, but because the ancient machinery of the body has been set in motion. And once that machinery begins, it carries with it both the beauty of deep human connection and the danger of unconscious entanglement. From here, we step into the next truth, one that carries a sobering clarity. For the very same bond that feels like connection can, in reality, be a trap. The anima projection, while intoxicating, is also a veil. And behind that veil lies the place where obsession replaces genuine intimacy. This is where we move next. What follows the silent bond is often a dangerous misunderstanding. It is easy to believe that the pull you feel and the intensity of his focus must mean something mutual and profound. But Jung warned us, when a man projects his anima onto a woman, he becomes enchanted, not connected. The enchantment feels real because it is charged with emotion, but that emotion is not built on truth. It is built on projection. You may notice the way his eyes hold you, the way his words begin to carry a strange poetry when he speaks to you, the way he seems to search your face for answers he cannot name. And yet, for all his intensity, there is a hollowness beneath it. He speaks in images, not in intimacy. He is drawn to you, but not reaching toward your reality. His fixation is not on the living, breathing woman before him. It is on the image you represent in the architecture of his inner world. This is the Anima Trap, the moment when you become less a person and more a vessel for his unintegrated longing. It is not that he intends to diminish you. In fact, the opposite often appears true. He may seem to elevate you, idealize you, treat you as extraordinary. But what he is elevating is not you. It is the reflection of his own hidden needs, his own half-known dreams, his own forgotten wounds. You are not simply a companion in his mind. You are a mirror for the parts of himself he has not yet met. And here lies the danger. When a woman begins to feel chosen in this way, there is a subtle temptation to preserve that feeling at any cost. She may begin to bend herself to remain within the image he holds. She may start dressing, speaking, or behaving in ways that keep her aligned with his projection. And each time she does, a little more of her truth is set aside. Slowly, quietly, she becomes an actor in someone else's myth, rather than the author of her own. The Anima Trap can be intoxicating because it feels like devotion. His gaze is constant, his interest unwavering, his energy fixed on you. But obsession is not devotion. Obsession is a hunger that feeds on symbols, not souls. It is the attempt to capture a feeling, rather than to understand a person. And as long as the anima projection remains unexamined, there will be no real meeting, only the endless circling around a fantasy. From the outside, it may look like romance. From the inside, it is something else entirely, a symbolic entanglement in which both people play roles that keep them from genuine encounter. He does not truly see you, and you cannot truly reach him, because both of you are relating to an image rather than a reality. This is why the silent bond, when left unexamined, so often deepens into fixation. Because when the projection is strong enough, it awakens more than attraction, it reawakens memory. And memory, when tied to longing, can be one of the most powerful forces in the human psyche. This is where we now turn our attention as we move deeper into the nature of obsession itself. When the anima projection takes hold, it rarely exists in isolation. Something deeper begins to stir, something that feels ancient and strangely familiar. Obsession, in its truest psychological form, is almost never about the present moment. It is about recognition. Recognition not of who you are now, but of what you awaken in the architecture of his emotional memory. Neuroscience tells us that memories linked to strong emotions are not stored like quiet photographs. They live in the amygdala, bound to the body's sensory and emotional responses. When those memories are triggered by a scent, a tone of voice, a certain curve of a smile, the nervous system does not distinguish between past and present. The body reacts as though the old experience is happening again. You may remind him not of a specific person, but of a feeling he once held or lost. And so when his gaze locks onto you and refuses to let go, it may not be because you are mysterious, rare, or unexplainable. It may be because you are familiar, deeply, hauntingly familiar, in a way that bypasses reason. You become the echo of a moment his psyche has been carrying for years, perhaps decades. An echo of a love he could not keep, a kindness he once knew, or even an ache he never resolved. In these moments, the mind is not truly seeking you. It is seeking resolution. It wants to find the missing piece of an unfinished story. And the danger here is that you are not the missing piece. You are the trigger that reopens the search. This is why his attention may feel relentless. It is not simply that he admires you. It is that you have reawakened a question in him that demands an answer. Often what a woman feels in this kind of gaze is not pure attraction, but a strange mixture of intensity and uncertainty. You may sense that he is both drawn toward you and unsettled by you. This is because his body is not merely responding to beauty or chemistry, it is reacting to a puzzle it cannot solve. His nervous system, charged with old memories and unresolved longing, keeps circling back, trying to complete the loop. And here lies the truth. The gaze that feels so intense may, in reality, be confusion. Not the confusion of thought, but of recognition without understanding. His fixation is his psyche's attempt to make sense of the collision between the present and the past. And until that collision is brought into the light, the obsession will not find rest. This is why the gaze can feel as though it carries a weight beyond attraction. Because in a sense it does. It carries the gravity of another time, another place, another chapter of his life that never found its ending. And in his mind, you may appear as the doorway to that ending, whether or not it is truly yours to open. From here, we move toward an even subtler territory. Because obsession is not only something he carries within, it is something that, over time, you can begin to feel. Even before a word is spoken, even if he keeps his distance, the intensity of that gaze can reach you. It can alter the air around you. This is where the silent pull between two people becomes something more than emotional. It becomes energetic. And that is where we turn next. There comes a point when the weight of his gaze begins to cross the invisible threshold between him and you. Even if no words have been exchanged, even if he remains silent in the room or far away in physical space, something in you starts to notice. It may arrive as a faint pressure, a subtle awareness, as if your presence has been claimed in some unseen way. The fixation that began in his inner world begins to ripple outward, and you feel it. This sensation can be difficult to name because it is not always tied to direct action. He may not call, he may not speak, he may not move toward you in any obvious way. And yet, you know because the human body is exquisitely sensitive to attention. Even without conscious awareness, our nervous systems register when we are the focus of another's energy. It is not imagination. It is biology. From the lens of quantum models of consciousness, attention is not neutral. It is an energetic act. When someone sustains their focus on you, it is as if a line of connection has been drawn between your inner world and theirs. Joe Dispenza often says that where you place your attention, you place your energy. If this is true, then a man's prolonged gaze becomes more than an act of looking. It becomes a transfer of energy. Over time, that current begins to have a presence you can feel. If you are intuitive, sensitive, or deeply attuned to your own body, the sensation can grow stronger. You may notice that you think of him more often than you expect, as though his presence keeps brushing against your awareness. You may sense a subtle intrusion, not necessarily unwanted at first, but unmistakable. It is as if the gaze itself has traveled beyond the moment it was exchanged, and now lives in fragments, inside your own energetic field. This is the feedback loop. The more he focuses on you, the more you begin to feel it. The more you feel it, the more your mind and sometimes even your body responds to it. This is not always a conscious exchange. It is a resonance. His fixation activates a subtle echo inside you, and in turn, your awareness of it may amplify his own preoccupation. Without words, without deliberate intention, you are both now participating in an unspoken circuit of attention. If left unrecognized, this loop can create a distortion. You may find yourself thinking about him without knowing why. Your moods may shift when he is near, or even when you imagine him. The gaze begins to carry a presence in your day, even if you rarely see him. In this way, his obsession does not remain his alone. It becomes something you carry too, whether or not you choose it. This is why the sensation of being seen can feel both magnetic and unsettling. It touches something primal in us, the need to be witnessed, to exist vividly in the eyes of another. But when that witnessing is fueled by projection rather than genuine seeing, it creates a tension. You are held in his gaze, but not necessarily in his understanding. And that is where the danger quietly lives. Because obsession, no matter how tender it may seem, is not the same as love. It is not the same as being met soul to soul. At its core, obsession is still a mirror, reflecting back his needs, his longings, his shadow. And that is where we must now turn, to understand why this kind of fixation, no matter how poetic it may appear, cannot yet be called love. There is a reason why obsession feels so consuming. It reflects something back to both people involved, something magnetic, but also incomplete. Jung called this the mirror stage of love, a phase where one is not truly in relationship with another, but with their own reflection in the other. This is the paradox. In the eyes that seem to hold you so intensely, you may not be seeing love at all, but the reflection of his own inner world. When a man looks at you this way, it can feel as though he is studying the very depths of who you are. But often he is looking through you, not at you. His gaze is fixed not on your truth, but on the version of himself he believes he has found in you. You become less of a living, breathing soul and more of a mirror that returns to him an image he craves, perhaps his unexpressed tenderness, his unclaimed sensitivity, his long-lost wonder. The mirror can be intoxicating for him because it promises self-discovery without the effort of turning inward. Instead of confronting his own inner landscape, he tries to find it in you. You are the shortcut his psyche believes it has found, the embodiment of feelings he wants to reclaim, but cannot yet hold within himself. This is why obsession often comes with an urgency he cannot explain. He is not chasing you, he is chasing himself through you. For the woman, this can create a strange tension. On one hand, there is a deep human longing to be cherished, to be looked at with reverence. On the other, there is the unsettling realization that the reverence is not truly for her, but for what she symbolizes. It is as though she has been cast in a role she did not audition for, holding a place in his story that may have little to do with her real life. And yet there is another truth here, one that carries both danger and potential. Sometimes the mirror awakens something real. Sometimes, in seeing his reflection in you, he begins to glimpse the parts of himself he has long denied. In rare cases, this can be the beginning of true individuation, the process Jung described as the journey toward wholeness. But this only happens if he is willing to step beyond the mirror, to see you not as a symbol, but as a whole being. Until that happens, obsession remains what it is, an archetypal hunger disguised as romance. It can feel like love because it is charged with depth, but that depth belongs to the symbolic layer, not the relational one. It is a current that pulls him toward you, yet keeps him at a distance from truly knowing you. This is why the mirror metaphor is so vital to understand. Because the moonlight you think you see in his eyes may not be your own. It may be the glow of his own shadow returning to him, and until he claims that shadow, he will not meet you as you are. From here, the question becomes not whether his gaze is beautiful or intense, but whether it is conscious. Because without consciousness, fixation will only entrap both of you in a story that never truly begins. And this brings us to the final and most important understanding, what it means to feel seen but not held, and the power in choosing whether to illuminate his gaze or to walk away from it entirely. There is a unique ache in being seen, yet not truly met. His gaze may be constant, charged with fascination, even drenched in tenderness, but if it does not carry the weight of understanding, it is not love. It is the projection of love's image without its substance. Carl Jung warned that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it fate. Obsession is often mistaken for fate because it feels destined, magnetic, inevitable. But destiny is not the same as compulsion. When a man fixates on you, it is not necessarily a sign of cosmic alignment. It is a signal, an indication that something in his inner world has been stirred. The real question is whether that stirring will lead him inward toward self-discovery or outward toward possession of the symbol you represent. One path transforms, the other imprisons. You are not here to carry the weight of a man's unlived life. You are not here to be the vessel for his anima, the archetype he has yet to integrate. If he mistakes you for the completion of his inner journey, without ever taking that journey himself, the bond will collapse under the weight of its own illusion. Neville Goddard spoke of manifestation through assumption, but assumption without awareness leads only to illusion. If he assumes you are the answer without knowing the question, his love will remain a mirage. The power of the feminine is not in being looked at, it is in seeing through the look. It is in recognizing when the gaze holds truth and when it holds projection. And in that recognition you hold the choice to illuminate what he cannot yet see within himself or to step away from the loop entirely. Both choices require sovereignty. Both honor your own presence. For some, this is where the relationship becomes a mirror for growth. If he is willing to confront the shadow you reflect, to see you as you are rather than as he imagines you, the obsession can dissolve into authentic connection. But if he clings to the fantasy, then you must decide whether to live inside someone else's dream or to walk your own path. In the end, the most profound love is not born from projection. It is born from recognition. Not the recognition of an image, but of a soul. Until then, obsession will remain what it has always been, a haunting echo of something unfinished, dressed in the language of desire. And so, if you feel the depth in his eyes but silence in his soul, remember this: you are not here to be a reflection. You are here to be whole. You are here to be met in the fullness of your truth, not just the shimmer of your symbol. And perhaps in that wholeness, you will remind him, not of you, but of himself. And that is where real love can finally begin.